Hello, you beautiful souls. Welcome to the Mystic Visionary Podcast. This is your host, Zia, and I'm doing things differently today. I already picked the word and meditated. So the word this week is change. And what I connected with that is how to navigate a reality shift. That's what the new paradigm is all about with the word change. We're having a reality shift, and sometimes it's hard to navigate that. Let me explain what I think that means. It's like when you see things differently than you've seen them before. You suddenly see things in a way that you haven't seen them. And you're not sure how to move forward, or you're not sure what to think. And your immediate response is to negate it, or to ignore it, or to have this idea of like, that's not, that doesn't really mean anything. But when in reality, it does mean something. It is big. And the call that you have at this point in time is to see that spark, that little idea that suddenly you saw things differently, that change of consciousness. And then you need to allow that to grow, to allow yourself to see it, to experience it, to feel it. I can give you an example for myself, and I don't want to be political, but this is a political example that I'm going to use. Back in 2015, when Hillary Clinton was running for president, I was a lifelong Democrat, and I wanted to support her campaign, although I really didn't like her that much. Well, then I heard that she had people on her inner circle and that were part of her campaign committee that were ex-Monsanto executives or lobbyists. And when I heard that, it reminded me of something I'd heard years before, back in 2008, when she was running against Obama. At the beginning of that campaign, that information came out about her law firm back in Arkansas when she and Bill were in Arkansas, that they were representing the corporation, Monsanto Corporation. And at the time, in 2008, I was like, no, that's just information the Republicans are putting out to make them look bad. I don't believe that. Well, fast forward to 2015, and when that information came out, it was like a stark reality that I couldn't ignore. Why would Hillary have these people on her campaign staff, prominent people in her campaign that were lobbyists or ex-executives from Monsanto, and that she'd given talks about, bioengineering and genetically modified things, and how Monsanto was a great company. I couldn't ignore it. It was like my heart dropped, and I knew that this was something I could not see. This isn't something I couldn't not hear. And I realized that the paradigm that I had been living under as this Democrat who just believed in my candidates 100% had to step back and not blame it on the Republicans, not blame it on anything other than the facts that were in front of me, that a candidate that I was supporting was involved with a big big industry that was fundamentally against everything that I stood for. And how did I reconcile that? That was really difficult. And at the time, I felt like I didn't have a choice but to vote for the Democrat, and I did. But what that did was it opened me to something that I wasn't ready to see before. And that was that this Democratic Party of my youth, of my naive 20s and 30s, and what I thought was my tried and true and completely understand party of my 40s and 50s, was not at all what I really thought it was. And it was hard for me. It was difficult. And when I talked to some of my friends, my Democratic friends, about it, they were giving me the information that I'd gotten back in 2008. Oh, it's just they're trying to blackball her, they're trying to make her look bad. We have to put that other stuff, you have to put that part aside for what's really important, the other things that they stand for. So they have that one bad thing, And I just couldn't do that anymore. I couldn't take that. I couldn't abide by that. It shifted my consciousness. It was a reality shift. And I could no longer deny what seemed real to me. And I think that we all have that in some way. We're in this time we're in right now, which is a crazy time politically and environmentally and every kind of way, socially, that there are things that come up like that. There's things that come up that go against your very nature of your core values. And even if it is in somebody that you support, or on the reverse of that, it could be on something or some issue or some person that you've hadn't supported, and you're like, why are they saying things that are true to my values when I don't really like that person? Or I don't like that group, or I don't like this situation. But it's like suddenly there's something in it that rings true for you. It's like that's what change is all about. It's like a great quote by Wayne Dyer that I've talked about before. When we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. And what happens when you have a shift in your consciousness by some outside force, some outside situation, or some information that comes to you, and you realize it doesn't align the way it used to align, you have to ask yourself what's going on. What's this about? And that's happening to people all over the world. That's happening to people everywhere you go. They are hearing things, they are learning things, they are seeing things that they hadn't seen before. They are understanding them at a different level, and they're looking within themselves to see how that jives with who they are. What are my values? What is my core telling me about this? And listening to that. And that's the key here is, when some kind of change or some kind of shift happens, it's so easy to just kind of push it aside and block it. The harder thing is to sit with it and ask yourself, why is this bothering me? Why is this confronting my values and my beliefs? And look at that. And navigate that shift. It's a reality shift, and it's happening everywhere, every day. People are experiencing that. And it isn't about politics. It's not about Democrat and Republican. It's not about the left wing and the right wing. It's not about any of those things. It's a higher level than that. I was listening to Greg Braden the other day on a podcast, and he talked about the word sovereignty. And the word sovereignty came to me years ago during meditation, and I've also talked about that before, where I didn't really completely understand the word sovereignty. And I had to look it up, and I sort of meditated on it, and I came to understand what it meant for me. It's like there's this part of me, and a part of all of us, that has a basic truth that is true to us as an individual, as this unique expression of the divine having a human experience. What is true for me? What is this idea of my innate freedom of thinking, of feeling, and experiencing the world? That is my sovereignty, that no one can take from me. That is the part that is built into us, that is as real as anything if we allow it, if we connect with it. And when I connected with my own sovereignty, that is when I found this place of empowerment, because I knew that what I believed, I knew what felt like truth for me, I knew what I stood for and what my values are, and I connected with that in a way that could not be permeated by the things on the outside of me. It's like the influence that used to be there wasn't there anymore. And I was able to settle down and calm myself into this bigger understanding of what had meaning for me. And when I look outward now, I can see things that are more true. And I am not caught up in the systems that I used to be caught up in, feeling like I had to be part of that, something outside myself that gave me an identity. My identity comes from inside of me, and the truth that comes from inside of me is my guiding post. And that's the change that happened for me. And when I posted this title of this, Navigating the Reality Shift, that's what change is, changing your reality. And when you allow that to happen, there's so much more depth, and there's so much more ease when you can allow yourself to connect with that, your inner sovereignty, your inner understanding of what is true for you, what is real and true at this deep level of as you as this spiritual being having a human experience. I did this whole program a couple of years ago called What Really Matters. And you had to dive into these the values and the core values of what really matters to you. And you kept eliminating till you just, got down to the most condensed version of your values. And it was a really eye-opening thing to understand what you really value. And I don't think people take as much time as they need to take to understand that. But what is a clue to that is when you start to see things. That's what this change moment is about. When you're suddenly looking at something with new eyes, when you're suddenly hearing things with new ears, you're suddenly understanding things in a new way or in a higher level. And you are challenging this old paradigm of status quo, or one that you were connected to because you felt like that was part of the requirement if you wanted to belong to a certain group or even friend group or family group or any kind of situation, church group. And when you can't question those things because it has the possibility of being ostracized, so you don't question it. But when things come up, which have been happening for the last few years, that you start to question and you see things differently than you have before, and you know that there's this change, there's this shift in consciousness, and you don't know whether to trust it or not because you know that it may jeopardize some kind of standing you have in your outside world. That's the part that's hard to navigate. It's hard to navigate that, seeing things differently than you have before, and trusting that and believing in that for yourself. And I think that's what we're all being called to do, is to not shut down those things that you see. If you see something that makes you question, if you see something or hear something that doesn't sound right, or there's some situation that makes you go, that doesn't seem right, and it may be uncomfortable to look at, that's partly what we're being called to do. We are in the center or the beginning. I believe we're in the center of this enormous identity shift, this change in the shift to the new paradigm that I keep talking about. It's not something that's in the future. It's something that's now. This change is happening, and navigating this change is going to be difficult for people. There are a lot of people that understand it and know that it's here. And if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably one of those people. But you might be somebody new who just saw this, idea and decided to listen. Well, this is for you as well. This is for all of us. This changing time that we're in is not an easy thing to navigate. But what I urge people to do is to look inside and look at it from the inside out view. And I know I talk about that a lot, but that's the truth of who we are. It's like, go inside to your own center, to your own truth, to what really matters to you, what your values are, what your beliefs are, what feels real to you. Not something that's been fed to you from the outside, but something that feels real, that you experience in your gut, that you know is true. And continue to look at it. Like, why am I seeing this right now? Why is this bothering me? What's going on? What is different than how I looked at this before? What has changed with me? And it's this inside out way of change. That's how you navigate this reality shift, is by connecting with that inner knowing, connecting with this truth of you inside you, that sovereignty that I got in touch with years ago, where I saw the power that I had as just the innate being that I am, and that my truth is different than anyone else's truth. What's true for me is the unique experience that I have had from life, the unique concept or the design of who I am, and the template which I see things through. That is my truth. And instead of downplaying that or pushing that aside because I wanted to fit in, or I wanted to please people, or I wanted approval from, the outside in, I now can see that that is so detrimental to my life and to anyone's life. We have to come into that authentic place within. And sometimes when we're in that authentic place within, we have to let down those old labels and let go of what used to be who we were. And sometimes, a lot of times when we do that, then we see things differently than we have before. And when we see those things differently, it's time for us to look at those with this new perception of ourselves. What does this mean through my template, through this template of this person, this being, this idea that came through as me, and what I believe in and what I value and how I see the world. Not by the influence of others, but from my own heart. And that's where navigating change is the hardest, but also the most important thing you can ever do. And take time with that. We can't just make these decisions, or we can't have these big shifts in consciousness without some contemplation. And leave the doubt out and just go with it. Just go with what it is that you're seeing, and allow that to be maybe something you go, maybe this is true. Maybe I need to look at this. Maybe I just need to put down everything that I've thought before and open myself up to something new. Just open yourself and allow it to happen. There's nothing to fear. There is nothing to fear, but there's a lot to be gained. That's the part that I want to emphasize. This shift is happening. This new paradigm is emerging. You can be afraid, you can be worried, you can be stuck in the old paradigm, or you can open yourself up, and sure, you can still be worried and concerned and all those things, but you can be open to knowing that good is going to prevail, that all this change that we're seeing, no matter how uncomfortable it is happening for a reason, and it's happening for a good reason. Not a bad reason. Trust that. You really have to trust that. And opening up to your heart and connecting with that in your innate wisdom, your innate understanding, your inner truth, that core of yourself that knows what's real for you, that knows what has meaning for you. That's what you're supposed to be doing right now. That's what we're all supposed to be doing. There's nothing more important that you can be doing than connecting with that wisdom within. And don't let anybody or anything or any situation convince you that you are not a magnificent, miraculous expression of the divine having a human experience. The more you can connect with that, the happier you're going to be. And all it requires is just going inward and allowing what's inside to come out. And close your eyes to the outside. Just let the outside be. And if you look outside and you see that thing like I'm talking about that makes you question, then close your eyes again. Go inside and say, what does that mean to me? How does that affect me? What seems real to me? What seems like truth to me? And discover that for you. This is a time for us to stand on our own 2 feet in our sovereign being and know who we are and know what has meaning to us. And taking the time to do that is the most important thing you have to do at this moment in time, because you only have control to the tip of your fingers. Whatever's happening out there in the world, you have no control over it. You have control to the tips of your fingers. You control yourself. And the more you know yourself, the more you go inside, the more you understand what's important to you, what you believe, what your truth is, your true north, the easier it's going to be to navigate this whole new paradigm and this whole shift that's happening. It's like a built-in navigation system that we've forgotten, and it's time that we all own that again. Well, blessings to you, and I hope through this process of change that you can find your truth and what's meaningful from the inside out. Go out there or go inside. Don't go out, go in and find out what's true for you. All right, thanks for listening, and thanks for whoever chose that word. And I'll be back next week with a new word. Blessings to everyone. If you want to learn more about the 5 guiding principles of the new paradigm, you can listen to my audiobook, which is The Pocket Guide to the New Paradigm, which is a free audiobook on YouTube. I'll link it below. And the other thing that I have available is the Heart Archetype Quiz. It's a short quiz that answers the question, am I listening to the call of my heart? And you take the quiz and you'll discover what might be blocking you from living the call of your heart. And I think that's what we're all being called to do right now, is to look inside, connect with our heart, and follow its guidance. All right, thanks for listening, and I'll see you next week.